Welcome back to my channel. I am Controversial Project. Transsexual issues seem to be on the cutting edge of society right now. And it seems like the LGB part of the equation has fallen from the spotlight, making trans issues the battleground for liberals and conservatives alike. From the videos and articles that I've read on this subject, it would seem like there is a general or seemingly general perspective that is correct. That is politically correct. And usually there's these points of conflict, these subjects that where you'll see these liberals and conservatives going at it to no end. You know, we could talk about puberty blockers for prepubescent children. We could talk about the trans people and their place in the society, specifically in prisons, in sports. We could also talk about gender dysphoria, and if that is a thing, if that is a part of the trans experience, and if that is necessary in order to transition. And one thing that surprises me, and this is what usually happens when there's a social type of war going on, I guess you could say, maybe this isn't the best time in history to refer to it as a war, but it does seem like that if you're on Twitter. Maybe if there were a real war, then they would stop these endless and useless debates. In all of that, just like in a real war, all of the innocent people who are in the middle, who are maybe suffering with gender dysmorphia and are just trying to do what is best for them so that they can resolve what they're feeling and try to feel normal, those people are kind of cast out on the wayside. It's not really about them. It's just about promoting ideas, being right, being correct, no matter what cost. But I guess that's just how things go, right? It pains me when I see stories of children, young adults who are just trying to figure life out, figure themselves out, which is absolutely normal. And maybe they do a misstep from what they're supposed to do by the pro-trans activists, even if objectively it's better for that particular person. And they're having to go online and say the right thing and do the right thing. And then if they do the right thing, then they are promoted and praised, and society finally gives them that acceptation that they have been desiring. Hopefully one day that will bleed into accepting themselves. Maybe. Probably not. Equally as terrible is the idea of detransitioning. There are more and more people coming out about that online. And for some people, it's already something to hear the story of someone who did one transition. Like, wow, somebody went and had surgeries and they took hormones and they changed who they were, who their physical appearance into the other gender. But now there's people who are changing back to their original gender. Whoa. And how many of those stories are rooted in a person who was confused and felt a certain pressure to transition from whatever external source, from their parents, from their friends, their social circle, or society in general, from these pro-transition activism that says this is the answer for everyone, and if you don't say that, then you're wrong. And the story of these detransitioners is going against that. And they will quickly say that transition wasn't for them. It doesn't mean that transition isn't the answer for some people. But that doesn't matter. Their story goes against the narrative, so they are condemned. And from my perspective, I'm looking at all of these conflicting narratives And I'm thinking, well, if a child, young adult is having a very confusing time and not really sure what is necessary in order to resolve it, don't you think that somebody with the power to influence that person would do whatever to try to actually help that person? It wouldn't be so much a opportunity to spout some sort of ideology, whether conservative or liberal, but it would actually be objectively looking at the situation and the person and seeing what is best for them, especially when we're dealing with life-changing surgeries. But Francis, who are you? You're just some white guy online spouting your opinion, of course, talking about things that don't concern you. Why don't you shut up and listen? Maybe if you were to read me like you would a book cover, that would be your conclusion. But anybody who is willing to hear my story, I invite you to keep listening. But if not, have a wonderful week. Thanks for stopping by. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. So I am not just another white guy. I don't really like to put people in categories like that because I accept that everyone has a very unique story, and it can actually surprise you if you sit down and listen to somebody. It's amazing. So if you didn't know, I am gay, but I also have a very personal connection with the trans conversation. We're gonna have to go back in time just a little bit, well, maybe 20 years. Oh gosh, I'm getting old. I grew up in a very, very conservative family and social structure around me. So you have man, woman, man likes woman, woman likes man. Very clear, very black and white. Except I didn't fit into that structure. I couldn't look at other men and connect with them 100%. But because I was gay, because I had an attraction to men, I could look at women and think, whoa, I can connect with them on certain things too. So here we have a very confused prepubescent Francis. That word... prepubescent. So obviously physically I could look at men and see myself reflected in them. Even in some of my behaviors and certain characteristics that I have, I could connect with men in that way. But there were a lot of things that connected me with the feminine, with my mom, with these women that were around my life. I was definitely more emotional. Well, I liked men. That attraction connected me with them. Even I used to play with Barbies, and not in the way of pulling their heads off and stomping on them with Transformers, but I actually played house with them. But even in a more general sense, it was so much easier to maintain friendships with girls than with guys my age. I just didn't get guys at all. And it's not just their conversations about women, but it was something else. There was just something that prevented me from clicking with them. Maybe because I just like them. Needless to say, I was very confused. If being gay were an option to me, then I would have easily been able to put myself into a course and follow that and understand what was happening within me. But it wasn't an option. But there's one more thing I have to say about my past, and it is absolutely embarrassing. But I want to try to be transparent with you. No pun intended. I didn't mean to make a trans joke with that. Transparent. truthful, authentic. I wanted to be authentic. So when I was young, around the same age, probably a little bit older, starting to hit puberty, so I was no longer pre-pubescent, I, with certain male friends of mine, I was a very imaginative kid, and I would always like to play fantasy, something, whatever. And with these friends, we would play, I don't want to say house because that makes it seem too adolescent, but I guess that was the time that I'm talking about. So I guess we were just playing house. But for some reason during that time, I always wanted to be the female character. I wanted to be the female romantic partner, which for us at that time, especially within religion, was not overtly sexual. I mean, we were living in a box, so it wasn't that, nothing happened. But I still put a sheet around me as my dress and put a pillowcase on my head, which imitated long hair. But now I have long hair, so I don't have to do that. No. Yeah, so that's what happened. It's embarrassing to me now, looking back from my perspective, but hearing all of these things about the trans issue and the confusion that happens at that age, I understand where some kids are coming from. But for me, it was just a period of my life. It was just confusing time. I had to figure it out for myself. There was nobody really that I could go to. But I did come out of that, and I'm gay, and that's who I am, and I'm happy with who I am. I'm comfortable being a man, and I'm comfortable liking men. I found my place, but at that time, it was not clear, and I was not clear. That's funny, considering the fact that I'm not a big fan of, I'm not a fan at all of drag queens or anything like that. And to think that when I was young, I was basically a drag queen. Seeing the narratives that are playing out, I have to think, I can't help but think, what would have happened to me if the option of transition was available? If I wasn't in a religious type of structure, would I have transitioned at that time? I mean, it wasn't a popular conception. I never even thought about it at that time, but it's very common now. There's a lot of children even that are very much aware of classmates that are transitioning, and I wasn't exposed to that. But if I was exposed to it, would I have transitioned? And considering how sure I am now about my life, would I then have become a detransitioner? And you know, recently, maybe within the past few years, I heard stories from the Middle East. I can't remember exactly what culture, what society actually promoted this, but same thing as I grew up with. There was that black and white type of structure, men, women, men like women, women like men, period, end of story. But they had the added, if you're found out to be gay and acting upon it, let's just say you're not going to live very long. But what they do, which is really interesting, and I can't remember exactly what society did this, but the gay men would transition into women. And it was easier on the family because it was no longer my son is gay, but now my daughter likes men. Easy fix, right? Unfortunately, how many of those people were not actually transgender? But if I was in that type of society, would that have been the solution that I chose? It's very interesting. All right, I found an article on the BBC. Iran is one of a handful of countries where homosexual acts are punishable by death. Clerics do, however, accept the idea that a person may be trapped in the body of the wrong sex. So homosexuals can be pushed into having gender reassignment surgery, and to avoid it, many flee the country. Horrible. So that's it. I just wanted to share a little bit of my reaction, my perspective, my experiences to give something to the conversation. I listen to all of those points where people debate and scream at each other and hate each other and all of that, and great, but I'm not going to contribute anything. Of course, I have my opinions from the research that I've done, but that's not the point of this video. It's just more talking about my own experiences. For me, so many people talk about the trans issue, but with such a conviction of like they have the truth behind them, when looking at what facts they have behind their stance, I don't see that foundation that I would need to have to spout those same words. When we're dealing with people and people's well-being, it's easy for an activist or any sort of public figure that has any influence to forget that every individual is being seriously affected, and it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. It'd be great to have one of these people say, I said this for so long and I realized that I was actually hurting people, and I am so sorry for doing that. You're never gonna come on. No one likes to be wrong. Just because you're confused doesn't mean you're abnormal. That something's wrong. I can't imagine anyone, even the people who are so sure about everything, they had moments in their life when they weren't sure. It happens to everyone. So I think that should be promoted more than forcing people to follow your ideology. You know what I mean? I'm looking out for the people who are just confused, and for them to hopefully hear this and realize that it happens and it doesn't last forever. So maybe this is an option. Maybe this is a possible solution for certain people. Not everyone, of course, not everyone, but maybe some people out there will hear and understand. That's it. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.